Today, I want to talk about going beyond traditional therapy. And what I mean by that is going beyond what normal standard therapy goes into. And I know there's some of you out there that have experienced or actually practiced something beyond the normal therapy that people usually get. Maybe you're a really um, a different therapist that you decide to do different things than what you're taught and move outside the box of standard therapy. And I really appreciate that. My experience with therapy was with a practitioner or a therapist that was really sweet and very soft spoken and easy to talk to and engaging and very much about her feelings. And it was great. The thing that was a little frustrating to me is the woman that I was with had experienced sexual abuse since in her childhood. And there was still no healing or integration from that abuse. She was still having to deal with it every single day. And I know that is a possibility for a lot of people. But I've also seen people go beyond normal therapy and heal what's happened to them in their childhood on a much deeper level. And I feel like that therapy that we were in couldn't really go there. And it was very much about getting her to talk about the things and get into her emotions because she was kind of shut down. But then when I asked her how long she'd been going to this therapist, it was something like 9 or 10 years, and she was still kind of in a PTSD or a traumatic state. She was functional in the world, but there was still this blockage around her. And I just thought about that and said it felt really good until the next time, and then it would feel really good, but there never seemed to be much progress behind that or beyond that. And I know that I've also heard the same kind of stories from people that I've been in front of, and other people have been in front of. And they say, I've been doing 5, 10, 15 years of therapy, and I've never gotten to what I've gotten to today. And I believe part of it is because the box that therapists are put in from their own education and their license only allows them to talk about certain things, and other things are sort of off limits. And also, maybe they don't know some of the concepts that people that are outside normal therapy can talk about. And that's why I tend to also get therapists as my clients because one, there's everybody needs to work on their stuff, and then the other part is sort of expanding their scope of content and what they can talk about and getting a deeper reach on their client than they had before. So this is what I want to talk about is like, for example, I was with a couple of guys that were in a relationship, and one had PTSD from some trauma in his past, and the other guy not so much, but they both had their certain emotional blockages. And they both had done a lot of drugs in the past, and that's how they coped with their emotions. Um, so as we got to talk, you know, as usually happens, people start to talk about this person and what they did and what they said, and it's great to get those feelings on, how it made you feel about that. And now we can start to look into that and what are the triggers that cause upset in your relationship. But what usually happens is that people go so much into that, and they're wanting some kind of a tool or a solution or a better way to deal with these upsets. But I don't really work that way. So I help people deal a little bit, but then I take a very short amount of time on that because I really want to go into, okay, we really want to solve this and integrate this. So this isn't something that you have to deal with. We want to go somewhere that maybe no one has gone before and go into where this all comes from. What is the core belief that you have that causes this mind program to be run, which causes the upset in the relationship? So one of the things that came up recently in this session with these guys is that the guy that was a bit shut down and really much in his negative feelings about himself, and his partner was trying to do his best to, God, I just want to love this guy. I just want him to love me, and why can't we just have a happy life. And the other guy, I would say guy number one, that was in this negative emotions, was just he really identified himself with the emotions and with the story, and I'm just this is what I am, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm just not very motivated. And there is some compassion for that, and there also, if there's any amount of um, empathy and compassion and understanding, I need to go into how can we solve this? How can we get into that? We do make a little shift, ever so small or large, make a shift in this guy's life so that he can start to break out of the identification with the story that's been created. And it's kind of like we all do this sometimes, where um, we have an idea about ourselves and there's a story, and when we're telling the story or if something triggers us, we say, "Yeah, oh man, I gotta stop doing that," or "Yeah, that's my trigger," or something. But if there's no anything beyond that that can resolve that trigger, can resolve um, the core wound there, then it's just going to keep on coming up. But so he's so used to, this comes up and he has a trigger about it, and he's trying to understand it, but he's so much into the story that he can't break out of it. So my thing is to come in there and do something or say something to give him a direct experience of what his true nature is. And several ways to do that. And one is breath work, one is sound healing, another one is meditation. And sometimes you can do a really short meditation of just being in the presence of your divine nature. So we can talk and talk, and everything can make complete sense to this person, the one that's completely in the story. But it's kind of like you could say the most magical, amazing truth, and still the person is so identified with that story and still in that traumatic state. It's kind of like, I think of it like a wild animal that's been caged for so long and has been so accustomed to the cage, and now you've opened up the door and you're like, is it really safe to come out here? Is it really safe to have emotions? Am I really going to be supported here? So there needs to be some real unconditional love and non-judgment, and maybe even some relating some direct experience that you might have had. So what's really hard to do is to relate to somebody that's in this position when you don't have at least a little bit of direct experience with that. And that's what really helps is that, thankfully I've had a pretty full life and I've had experience of joy and pain and suffering and trauma and all those things. So I can pull from that and I can lean into that. So I can lean into my own direct experiences, which really helps to affect change in that. So back to get that kind of pattern broken, I like to start with a little meditation that kind of walks the person through what is it that's really true. So I think what I walked him through was, um, there's this feeling of depression and sadness and um, maybe in some anger or distrust, whatever the emotion is, there's always the awareness of that emotion. So, it kind of comes out of my mouth. So I'm kind of pulling back at myself right now and trying to figure out how I say this. But it's about noticing that there is always the awareness of whatever the emotion is. And in that, there's this clue that there's this awareness. Where does that awareness come from? What's that about? So I have this emotion, my mind or my thoughts have it in my body, this feelings, and they have emotions. How are they known? How are my feelings and my emotions? When I have anger, how is that anger known? So we put a word to this, and the word is awareness, or even expanded, it's called conscious awareness. What is that? Well, it's not really a thing that you can quantify too much. You can't really put it in a box, and that's why it's so elusive. But the more that we talk about this and we start to engage in this conversation, that we start to pull away from just being of the mind and its beliefs and its thoughts into this place of awareness. Wow, I'm aware that I'm attached to my story. I'm aware that there's this belief and there's this story, and I'm aware that I'm resistant to hearing something or pulling away from this. It's kind of like you're really wrapped up into this and you're aware of that you're wrapped up into it. But little by little, that can soften and the resistance starts to soften. And it's like you start taking a little step and a little step, and you're not in the same place that you were before. So this is kind of how I work with people is that I want to go into at least a place of awareness of who they really are, for one, and awareness of this identification with the story and the beliefs and all the patterns that they have taken for granted all this time. And then we can go into, okay, if there's the awareness about that, now where might have this whole belief have started? If there's a feeling that you are not motivated in life and you feel like you're just in a depression, what is the feeling behind that? That you're not, you don't have permission to be angry or whatever the thing is. Where did that come from? Where did this start? Well, it started a month ago. No, it didn't really start a month ago because this is always a trigger back into the childhood. So that's where I like to go is to go back into the deeper realms of the childhood and say, okay, what was the scene like and what were the emotions that you were feeling? So invariably, whatever's been happening in the adult life tracks right down into the childhood. Now you can kind of so the emotion that's happening in the adult life and pair it up with the emotion that was happening in the childhood. Now you can get to some healing and integration. And this doesn't need to be a 5, 10-year, 15-year process if done correctly, if done with compassion, empathy, some sharing of direct experience, and really going into it. Because what people are normally used to is they're used to just kind of taste and other things. Oh yes, you have these feelings of these inadequacy or self worth or something. Well, let's work with that, and then let's talk about this and how does this make you feel? And it's great stuff for the surface, and you can see how it doesn't really get down to the thing. It lets it all be and continue to be. And I like going down into it and say, okay, what can we recreate ourselves into be? And use this as this is the part that is really I feel really different is that I start getting into there's a reason why you're here. There's a reason why you're in this body because you are perfect because there's a perfect experience that's happening right now, and part of that perfection is this pain and suffering and this knowing of how this feels so you can have compassion and empathy for other people that feel the same way, but that's not meant to be your whole life story. For a lot of people, it is. But for you, because you're in front of me, you're meant to flip that around and start to shift your life and transform your life into something that a very small percentage of people actually get into. But for you, it's apparent that it's right here for you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in front of me. So that's the same thing that I can relate to about how it happened with me. I was in guilt and obligation and feeling insignificant, unappreciated, and unacknowledged. And it was just kept on going down that road. And I thought, this is just how I feel. And I cope with it in certain ways. And but that's not where the whole journey ended. I needed to stop at that corner of that building. And instead of looking straight, I needed to peek around the corner and realize that there's something else going on here. There's something else that's going to be created that is totally different than how I know my life to be. And that's where I like going. So as people start to get into this sort of bickering back and forth, I let that happen for a little bit, just to kind of get the emotions out and saying, that these people can kind of when they start getting to, it makes me feel something. You make me feel something, even if they say you make me feel. At least they're coming out with the emotions of how they're feeling, because a lot of people like so this guy, this say guy number two, he's used to taking care of everyone and being the caretaker and giving himself, but not really being so much in touch with his emotions. So what does he do? He attracts a guy that's completely emotional. So guy number two sees guy number one as this is someone that I need to take care of, I need to fix, I need to caretake for, and he's got this problem. But in reality, guy number one is helping guy number two to come back to himself. So this is not something that you usually hear in normal therapy because it's kind of a like a spiritual metaphysical theory, but I've seen it to be proven true in so many cases that we attract people in our life that help us to expand and help us to grow as a soul. So here's a guy that's showing up to him is that, you know, I've got these problems and I've got this trauma and I'm in depression. And here's this guy number two going, I just want you to love me. I just want you to love me. Well, the question goes back to guy number two. How come you don't love yourself? Because this guy number one may seem like he has all the problems, but you attracted him. Why did you attract someone that isn't able to love you? What is it about you that you're not able to love yourself? It's kind of a, you might call it some tough love or kind of harsh, but it really kind of needs to break open that and get into something deeper, into the reality of what's really going on. Normal stuff just kind of works on the surfacey, but the questions need to be asked. If you're a creator of your life, if you attract like vibration in consciousness, and you've attracted this, and you find it really hard to love this or for him to love you, what is it about your consciousness and your beliefs and your inner vibration that has attracted that? And why is it this so frustrated? So now, if you go into everything is ours to have, if we'll only allow it, if we kind of break ourselves open from all the layers that we've layered on top of ourselves, we find that we have everything that we need. But what we've done is we've layered on still on top of ourselves our inner light of these beliefs and ideas and thoughts and mind programs. So the question has to become what is inside of me that is in this invisible resistance to what is it that is already there for me? Let me say this a different way. Inside of us, there's this resistance to love. Otherwise, we would have everything, experience everything as pure love. But inside of us, there's these ideas that I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I'm not lovable, or whatever the thing is. And any time that we're trying to get something and it's frustrating and we can't get it, it's not because of outside. It's not because outside isn't trying its hardest to give it to us. It's not because God isn't giving it to us. It's not because this person can't give us love. It's because our channel's not open completely. And I challenge you, even if you believe your channels to be open them more. What if you open your channels even more for love? And if you have anything in your life that is not feeling in alignment, are your channels open for love? And what if they were? How would that change things? And that was the question for I had for the guys is, you know, what if your channel was open? Here it is, you're struggling, you have, issues in your relationship. And if you were to continue on this path, it doesn't look great. But what if you change things right now? What if you completely allowed yourself to love yourself in all ways more than anything or anyone? Wow, just imagine what would change there, how your life would change. In fact, it would change every aspect of your life. It would change your health. It would change your career. It would change your finances. And of course, it would change your relationship. So um, I think that's the main piece that is kind of outside normal therapy. And there's more, but that's one of the major ones is that everything is ours to have. Everything is ours to have, and everything is ours to receive. And if we're not receiving it, then there's some kind of blockage there. And of course, there's a lot of other things in play there that are outside of the trauma that I've experienced or the beliefs that I've had. There's all kinds of different factors, seen and unseen. But if we could put a little energy into what I've been talking about this idea, that's one that can make a huge difference in our life. And the other thing, of course, is things like astrology and when you were born and what's in your chart and all those things. I find that very helpful stuff to know that there are certain patterns and rhythms in life. And sometimes it's we're not in the right rhythm to receive what it is that we want. But that can't be the reason for everything. So it kind of plays into that, but it's not the reason for everything. Just like what I'm talking about isn't the reason for everything, but it's a really powerful one. So I hope that's helped you. And if you want any more insight into this or want to do some more self-discovery with me, give me a call, contact me. I love what I do. I love being a part of this life transformation. I love you. Thank you. Have a beautiful day. Bless you.